Welcome to TN Rockets, where today we'll be breaking down footage of a Houston Rockets off-season signing, Jae'Sean Tate, a 25-year-old forward out of Ohio State, who last year helped lead the Sydney Kings to their first NBL Grand Final in 12 years. Houston also brought over the Kings coach Will Weaver, thought to be a defensive specialist who orchestrated the NBL's best defense last year. I'm Nathan Fogg. Please make sure to check out my blog tnrockets.com, where I'll be posting more film studies as we get closer to the start of a new season. And you can follow me at NathanFogg1 on Twitter. That's Fogg with 2 Gs. So let's get to Jae'Sean Tate, and Tate had an excellent season for the Kings last year, averaging 21.5 points, 7.8 rebounds, and 2.5 assists per 36. His shot chart is pure Maury ball, and despite being just 6'4", he shot 72% from 2, almost all of these being at the rim. He also shot 37% from deep, but just 60% from a free throw line, which we'll get to later. A lefty, Tate is most comfortable taking his jumpers from the right wing. Slotting into Houston's offense shouldn't be much of a culture shock. He took just 5 mid-range shots last season, more than 2/3 of his attempts coming at the rim. Tate was a beast in the paint, and that's where we should start off in our film review. Despite being, and I'll say it again, just 6'4", Tate shot 75% at the rim in the regular season, and even in the playoffs with more defensive attention, this only dropped to 68%, still a huge number. Tate got to the basket in a variety of different ways. He takes advantage of a mismatch here on the smaller guard as he gets a cross-match in transition. He takes his time establishing position, backs down the defender all the way to the hoop until he gets a foul call. Against taller defenders or in heavy traffic, he has a variety of spin moves. He has hop steps, double clutches, ball fakes, and generally he's not afraid to put his shoulder into anybody to clear the necessary space. It's a combination of brute force and skill that combines into an incredibly efficient post player. He can twist and contort his way to the rim, a valuable skill set next to James Harden that Houston just hasn't had much of before. He can set a screen to get an on-ball pass like Avery Bradley or Josh Okogie off of James Harden, establish position down low, and then punish the mismatch. Given a lane or getting downhill in transition or in the open court, Tate is at the same time both a bully and a ballerina, able to take large strides to get to the rim in just 2 steps, or use a super fluid Euro step. Tate just wants to get to the basket, and give him a lane or even a look at the rim, and he will get a shot up. He can take a defender off the dribble, getting an angle on him for the layup, or using the back to the basket game that we saw earlier. Playing for the Kings, he attracts a lot of attention, and when the defense has collapsed, he's shown the ability to find the open man. He only averaged 2.5 assists per 36, but that doesn't quite tell the full story. He's mostly a score-first type of player in their system, and when you shoot 75% at the rim and get there so often, it's just not the priority to find others. Right now, Tate is a scorer with a scorer's mindset, but there is potential there for him to be a playmaker off driving kick opportunities. Tate was Sydney's best penetrator, so he often had the ball in his hands, but he did make some nice cuts, reading the lanes in the defense and being active enough to get a couple of easy buckets. Here he gets the ball on the catch, takes a dribble and then a hop step, although the shot doesn't go up. Andrew Bogut's made a nice playmaking centre to find Tate when he cut. But the NBA is still way ahead of international leagues in terms of pace and space, so I would like to see Tate be able to expand his cutting game next to James Harden and Russell Westbrook, as well as their new playmaking centres in DeMarcus Cousins and Christian Wood. When it comes to getting into the paint, especially in the half court, Tate can sometimes be quite sloppy. He does only average 2.5 turnovers per 36, which isn't a lot, but when you consider that his assist-to-turnover ratio is an imperfect 1-to-1, that needs to improve. And most of Tate's turnovers can look something like this. He can look like he's just run out of ideas when he gets to the free throw line. Sometimes he'll just run into a defender or two, looking for contact, and while he may get away with it in some of these clips, a sloppy dribble makes for easy pickings for better defenders. He has a terrible habit of transferring the ball from one hand to another. That's just begging for a steal. But he's more than going to make up for all this with the hustle plays and second chance opportunities he generates. Tate is a monster on the offensive glass, following the ball to the rim once the shot goes up and leaping quicker and further than anybody else. His offensive rebounding percentage of 7.3% is way higher than any NBA player at the same height. For players 6'4" and under, Gary Payton II led the league last year at just 5.3%. Tate can put back his own misses with a very strong second jump. He looks like Zion Williamson in this clip right here. On the defensive end, his leaps mean he can come out of nowhere to grab the ball, and he uses his stocky frame to box out and clear a path for himself. He's also adept at using his butt to move a defender out of the way. Tate also uses his body to great effect in setting screens for the ball handler, getting shooters open on the perimeter. Again, this would be especially useful when trying to free James Harden from a defender such as Lou Dort. He can screen and re-screen in tandem with the shooter. To make this a more valuable skill will mean being able to drain the shot on a pick and pop consistently. He can also screen and roll, which is especially potent in handoffs, although this is not something I saw the Kings use with him very often. Playing with Bogut, he's also mastered some of those questionable screens, although they may not be as egregious as some of Bogut's masterwork. I like this play a lot. He screens and then re-screens to get the shooter open. Moving to the defensive side of the floor now, and the results are much more of a mixed bag. Tate was mostly immobile, having defenders chase around screens around him, while he was more of an anchor in the Kings' defense. Coach Will Weaver switched between different zones, such as a triangle and 2, and a 2-3 zone, keeping Tate on a big man down low. It does seem Houston believes in Tate, who is part of Will Weaver's top-rated defense in the NBL, but he was playing in a system that mostly hid his weaknesses. Switching onto guards is a very tough ask for Tate. He simply doesn't have the foot speed to keep up. Worse, he overcommits, meaning you don't need a particularly quick first step to beat him, whether on ball or off ball. He likes to be physical, and his strength lies in his strength. He can stay with a defender trying to drive on him, using his torso to ride the contact and stop him getting to his spot. Again though, he's committing to just one thing and can't change direction, meaning he gets exposed if a ball handler can stop on a dime, something most guards can do in the NBA with ease. He does at least have excellent recoveries, thanks to his leaping ability. This allows him to concede space to the shooter, but still get up a decent shot contest. This likely won't translate strongly to the NBA, where so many players can just fire away from anywhere from the court. You just can't give them this much space. He seems like a good communicator, always pointing and directing the defense, but the downside to this is he's often caught out watching other players over ball, instead of guarding the play. He's also at times a lazy help defender, not even attempting to help on a driver. This could be the scouting report sticking to the shooter at all costs, but it is quite glaring seeing how close he can be to a driver without so much as looking at him. Lastly, let's look at Tate's shooting. Tate was a poor shooter in college, hitting just 27.7 of his three-point attempts on low volume, just one shot per game. This improved significantly in his year in Australia, where he converted 37.3%, but again just on 51 shots, so you shouldn't take too much away from the top-line numbers. Almost all of Tate's three-pointers were wide open, and he often passed up looks like this that weren't. This is important context when evaluating him as a shooter, although being able to knock down catch and shoot opportunities playing next to Harden and Westbrook is always going to be a useful skill. The form of his shot looks solid enough to me. His feet are set and he synchronises the dip with his elbows and his knees consistently, although I'm not a mechanics expert, so leave a comment below with your thoughts. How well his form holds up if he does have to quicken his release, which he should work on, is another big question mark, and I do want to note that Tate's shooting improved in the playoffs, hitting 45% of his threes and going 70% from the free throw line. This suggests to me it isn't a confidence issue, and hopefully working with John Lucas, who produced excellent results with Clint Capella, he will reap similar benefits. The biggest worry for me is if you look closer at what his hand is doing. Watch this free throw, it's almost as if he's palming it out of the back of his hand, as if it were a kind of a floater shot. So that about sums it up on Jae'Sean Tate's game. I honestly don't expect him to be a regular rotation player for the Rockets right away, and even though his 3-year deal is mostly non-guaranteed, it does seem as if they are ready to invest the time in developing his game. To make it in the NBA, he'll likely have to find more comforts with his outside shooting, and work on his defense, becoming a better off-ball helper and finding a way to stay in front of guards on the perimeter. He doesn't slot into the usual archetypes that role players have to fit into these days. A 3-and-D wing, a stretch big, or a secondary playmaker, but I like this about him. He's unlike any other player Houston has on its roster, and I think with his bully ball style, especially if used more of a cutter off ball next to Houston's two Hall of Fame point guards, he could wreak havoc in an open court. I love the potential for him to be a screen setter to help Harden out in the playoffs, and if he gets to the rim with anywhere near the ease he did in the NBL, he can be a secondary or tertiary scorer. Thanks for stopping by and watching my video today, and be sure to subscribe to the channel below and to check out my blog teaandrockets.com, that's TEA and rockets.com, and I'll be having more videos and breakdowns of some of Houston's new signings, including the rookie that's getting all of the buzz right now, Mason Jones.